Thank you.
Good morning, everything.
Ready?
We're ready.
Good morning, Ms. Torres. And just for the record, Sarge, may you, administer the oath? Yeah.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. Do you solemnly swear
Do I solemnly swear,
under the penalty of perjury
under the penalty of perjury,
that the testimony you shall give in the manner at hand
that the testimony I shall give in the manner
at hand
at hand
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth?
and nothing but the truth?
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you, Sarge. Thank you, Ms. Torres. Thank you, members. Today, I call this special meeting to order. We are back from recess from August 10th, and during the last meeting, we received comments from Ms. Torres, and that's why you're here right now, because there were some statements made, and we're not sure if we can continue the investigation because of what you've stated, and it's understandable. And with that, may I have you state your name and position for the record, please?
My name is Margaret Bertha C. Torres, and I am Director of Admin Services for the Department of Finance.
Thank you, Mrs. Torres. And the duties, are you the overall in charge and reporting only to the secretary?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how long have you held this position?
I've been the Director of Admin Services for about 6 years.
6 years. And during these 6 years, how many OGAs have you complied to?
Just in,
requests?
well, we've had OGAs, but they were not the same kind of requesting for documents. These OGAs would ask for for records like excise tax or cigarette tax, fuel tax. This is the first OGA, or maybe the third one,
Okay.
that I got that requested for documents
Yes. Okay.
of someone.
And this is the first time from the legislature, correct?
Yes,
The rest are all from different persons or agencies or
Yes.
what have you. Okay. And the reason why you're asked to report here, because there was some information that you've stated in your official letter saying that you were redacting information. So pretty much we held everything because we're not sure if the investigation can continue, and so the members requested this body to have you brought in to explain, and we'll have that question asked by the members. And with that, I'll open up the floor to members that have any questions to Ms. Torres. Rep. Villagomez, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Ms. Torres. Thank
Good
you
morning.
for your presence here. According to your statement, you indicated that you supervised finances preparation for the records in response to our requests from the minority.
yes.
Did you receive any instructions from anyone in terms of how to handle this request?
No. What I did was I ran like a report on your request based on like the business unit or the sub-account. So if the sub-account was OR, I ran a report on OR. Then I instructed finance and accounting to pull all the documents.
record. What's OR, man?
Official representation or travel. I use the sub-accounts for travel for official representation according to your request.
Okay, thank you. Do I still have the floor, Chair? Okay. When did the governor's legal counsel contact you about the release of the records that were being requested through the OGA? Was this before or after the request was made in December?
So what happened was on June 17, I got an OGA for the governor's travels and reimbursement. I complied with that OGA and I released those documents to a citizen. The citizen gave Content News the copies, and so his personal credit cards, the bank statements, everything got published. After that, that's when I got a call from Gil that his personal information is out there, and that if I do receive another OGA, to make sure that I redact personal information.
Thank you. Do you have any specific date on when you were instructed to redact any further requests?
I believe it was after July 26. I know it was after it was published on Content News.
What other, if any, what other information or any particular records did he tell you, the governor's legal counsel tell you to redact?
He just told me to redact personal information.
And when given this instruction, was he specific as to why, other than it being personal information? Any?
He told me personal information like bank account, social security, credit card.
So prior to June 17, 2000, was it 2019, if I'm not mistaken? Were you contacted by Mr. Burnbridge for any reason?
Prior, no.
Okay. Was the redaction done at finance, or did it had to be brought over to the governor's office?
The redactions that we did were done at my office.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll yield for now.
Thank you, Rep. Villagomez. The floor is still open for any discussion, questions, or concerns. Rep. Probst.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Director, for coming in today and for answering our questions. We really appreciate your time. I'd just like to follow up with my colleague some of his questions. So, does Finance have legal counsel assigned to you from the Attorney General's office?
The only, sir, the only legal counsel we have is Dustin Rowlands, but he's assigned to Revenue and Tax.
Okay. So you normally do not check the, okay, all right. So did you consult with any legal counsel about how to handle these legislative requests for records?
So, no. What I did was, when I got the request, I ran the report, and then I instructed the staff to pull the records, just to get it ready. The records was a lot of records, and it took us, I mean, I even asked for extensions, because it took really long to pull those records out.
Did, did Council Burbidge, did he ask you to redact any of the original records? That was,
No, he didn't tell me redacted off the original. I guess I was the one that instructed the staff to redact it from the originals because we had OPA, we had the minority, we had the legislature for the same document.
thank you.
So I was the one that instructed them.
Okay. For the record, 1 CMC 9918, letter D, states agency responses refusing in whole or in part inspection of any public record shall include a statement of the specific exemption authorizing the withholding of the record or part thereof, and a brief explanation of how the exemption applies to the record withheld. Were you by any chance aware of this requirement?
No,
Okay. Was any statement prepared?
what do you mean statement?
I suppose if you didn't know, then you were never informed of this requirement. Just out of curiosity, in your previous experience handling OG requests, have you ever redacted or altered the original records in finance custody prior to releasing the copies?
The previous or all the other OGAs that I received only ask for like reports, which is like excise tax or fuel tax, and there's no redaction there. We just ran the report off the financial management system, and that was it.
Okay. Do you know by any chance if the government has any credit cards? The credit card, like if the CNMI government finance has actual CNMI government credit cards?
Sir, maybe you should ask David.
Okay, we can ask that. And I guess this might be a question for Dave, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask you for a second. Does finance keep a list of credit card numbers and names on the cards that have been used for the governor's reimbursements? Do you keep it on file or anything?
I am not aware.
Not aware. Okay. Okay, well, thank you. I yield for now, Chairman. And thank you again, Ms. Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Probst. Chair recognizes the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Madam Torres, thank you very much for responding to our request for your appearance here today, this morning. We really appreciate it, and we understand that your time is worthy of, coming over and to ask several questions. I wanted to further ask in reference to a citizen OGA request, a citizen, and I wanted to know if that particular citizen is, the name of that person can be reviewed openly. I'm concerned because a citizen who asks for documents, and you alluded that the information that was provided to that particular citizen openly made those documents publicly available, to the point that what you call that, media,
Condit.
yeah, the Candid News openly made those documents available. And I'm glad that Mr. Burnbridge is here, and maybe he can further elaborate. My question is, can we review that person, that citizen's name, or if not, and maybe we can get to Mr. Burnbridge later on. You don't have to answer it, no, Madam Torres, but my concern is a citizen who asks specific documents, and then finance complied to their request. I am perturbed that this person is actually going after somebody. Uh, it is very, very embarrassing that a person would ask under the Open Government Act for documents, specifically documents such as reimbursements for a person, and then decided to openly made it available to the world. It's really frustrating, and you don't
Point of
have
information.
and you don't have to answer the question. We can get it to. We can later get it to when Mr. Burnbridge has come to the table. And, thank you.
Thank you. Your point of information.
Thank you. On the Vice Chairman's concerns and questions directed to Ms. Torres regarding the name of the citizen, Ms. Torres, would you please clarify, do you know how that for sure that the citizen turned over these records to Candid News?
This request came on June 17th.
Would you please turn on your mic?
Sorry.
That's okay.
The request came June 17. She paid. She paid $913 on July 9. Right after she was the only one I gave these records to.
But answer the question. Do you know for a fact that this person gave the records to Candid News?
No.
So it's possible that the records could have been shared with other individuals. Perhaps these records could have been obtained in some other way and somehow made their way to Candid News. You don't know for sure who gave these records to Candid News.
I don't know for sure who gave the records to Candid News.
Mm-hmm.
I know for sure that she was the one I gave these documents to. And so
Okay.
she was the only one.
Right, but you don't know the transmission of
to
records.
her, yes.
Okay, thank you. So now that we have established that, you also complied with an Open Government Act request to the best of your ability,
Yes.
correct? And in good faith released records that were public records as far as you knew.
According to the OGA.
Right. So there is nothing wrong about the release of public records, even if a citizen had obtained them from you and released them to the media for publication.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just I didn't redact the governor's personal information.
Understood. Thank you. I yield for now, but I do have other questions later.
Rep, Mangaloy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Ms. Torres.
Good morning.
Just a few questions. Last week, Finance turned over a number of records responsive to the minorities' OGA request 8 months after our initial request. Why did it take this long, or why did it have to take a legislative subpoena for these records to be released?
I think you should ask the secretary. Okay, so the way the records work is they're by payment vouchers. They're numbered. Every day it's a different number. So the request for us were from 2014 to 2019. We had to go back, and if you see what I submitted, there was also a statement where we couldn't find the document because of the typhoon. It got wet, or bugs ate it. It wasn't there. So, some of the utility, and I attached it to whatever I submitted to the committee. There's a letter from the Director of Finance and Accounting that there was 2 records that we could not locate because the documents were destroyed.
Do you still have records that you have yet to submit, or this is everything that you have on hand?
Everything that you guys asked, we gave.
Okay, thank you. At any point, did anyone instruct you or pressure you to delay the release of these documents?
No, sir.
Finance has not turned over any utility records for the governor's residence from 2017 through 2019. We do have records from 2015 to January 2017. Did the governor pay for the utilities for this period?
Congressman, I cannot tell you off my head. I need to go back and check on our financial management system.
So the records would be in the financial management system?
If the government paid, then it should be there.
Rep. Molina, please.
Privilege, please. That line of question is not appropriate for the person sitting here. I think that line of question should be directed to the Secretary of Finance.
Okay, she's the handler of these documents. I mean, she submitted all these documents to us.
Just to remind you, we did subpoena the Secretary of Finance, and when he comes in, that's when you can ask that question. Thank you.
Objection.
Excellent.
Point of order then. We have a witness here who has stated for the record that she was responsible for handling this Open Government Act request. And we have a member here who is asking about how this Open Government Act request was handled specifically as to utility records. I think he should be allowed to ask his question.
I do understand that. She mentioned that she cannot remember off her, so no, you can't remodel. So we'll leave it at that. We'll respect the position. Obviously, she reports to the Secretary of Finance. So if she's stating that she doesn't remember, she doesn't recall, then I think we should move on to the next
Fair
line.
enough.
And we'll ask, you will get to ask that question to the Secretary of Finance at a later date. So
Point of order, Chairman.
What's your point of order?
Thank you. You know, we're asking questions to a person that has no authority. I understand she is a director of administrative services. That's what she does. But we all should also understand that each one of us has a supervisor. The supervisor above us calls the shots, okay? So when you have questions, specific questions, you direct it to the specific person that makes that authority. Yeah, you.
And we'll get that answer with the Secretary of Finance. And with that,
Thank you,
you
Mr.
still have the floor.
Ms. Torres, whatever you may answer, we would like to hear what you're able to give, and then whatever you can answer, we'll go ahead and save those questions for the Secretary. Next question. Finance has not turned over NOPAs and payroll records for all officers assigned to the governor's personal security detail. If these officers remained within their respective departments and were not actually transferred to the governor's office, even while working as PSDs, would you have records of those PSDs assignments?
No.
You wouldn't have records?
Like I explained to Congresswoman Sablan, I had to go to OPM to request those NOPAs. I got that from OPM. From there, that's when I ran the payroll report. But as far as I know, that's the only protective service detail employees is what I gave you guys.
Okay. Thank you. Last question. Would you be able to provide master reports from the general ledger for these following categories: the travel for the governor and first lady, as well as the utilities for the governor's residence.
You wanted a report on the governor's
The
travel?
master report.
Oh, a master report.
Yes.
I think that can be done.
All right. Thank you. No further questions, Chair.
Thank you, Rep. Manglonia. Floor, I saw you raise your hand earlier.
No, I raised my hand earlier that we continue to proceed earlier, but you have instructed already Mangonia to continue his line of question. I yield for now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Floor. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns with the director? Representative Sablan.
Thank you. Ms. Torres, you mentioned that OPA requested the same records that the members of the minority had requested from Finance. Did you release redacted records also to?
Yes.
You did.
It's
So you
the same.
redacted the same information?
Yes.
And, okay. And could you just explain in greater detail, like exactly what types of information was redacted from the original records?
The types of information was like social security numbers. If we found a bank account, the bank account, the credit card number.
The bank account number was
Yes, the bank account number.
in its entirety?
Yes.
Okay.
The credit cards, I believe that's it.
And even the last 4 digits of
Yes,
the credit card
even,
numbers were redacted?
I had like 4 or 5 staff work with me. So what I told them was credit card, social security, bank, and that's what we did.
And did Mr. Burnbridge tell you to redact even the last 4 digits of the credit
No,
card
he
numbers?
didn't. He said credit card, social security, and bank account numbers.
Okay.
We were the ones that took it on ourselves to redact all numbers.
Okay, and prior to this request, you had never physically altered finance records before?
Prior to this request, yes. I gave the citizen unredacted records.
Okay. And so when members of the House minority met with you in January to inspect the initial set of records that you had collected,
Yeah.
Do you recall that we asked you specifically not to redact the last 4 digits of the credit card numbers?
By that time, we already did that.
Everything had been redacted by then, but you were
Oh.
still collecting records at that point
In
because you
December,
asked for an
January,
extension.
Yeah, because I asked for an extension. I'm sorry, Congresswoman, I probably remember, but like I said, there was more than just me redacting records. And so when we redacted, we took out all the credit cards.
So even after we had requested that, you and the staff continued to redact all the credit card numbers in their entirety after that point?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember when exactly these records were redacted? We sent the request in December, so it was,
I don't have the exact date.
okay.
I don't.
Okay. All right. I yield for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Saban. Is there any other member for the first round? Reps, Floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director Berta Torres, for coming on in today's proceeding. Are you in liberty to share the citizen that requested the OJ Act?
I am not sure. I probably maybe you should direct that question to the Secretary.
Okay. So you're not sure, and you're not in the position to share the name of the person that requested the OJ Act, the citizen.
Yes.
When was this day when the citizen, do you recall, requested the OJ Act?
I got
Request
the
for-
email June 17, 2019.
And when did the same citizen receive the request he or she requested for?
We have a official cash receipt that's dated July 9, 2019.
And when you say cash receipt, what cash receipts are those? What purchases or what documents are those?
So she requested for all travel for governor, first lady, receipts, reimbursements, trip reports. She requested for those documents, and so we charge 50 cents a page, and she paid $913.50.
And to your knowledge, this is the only individual that requested documents through OJ Act for the specific documents that you have released.
Yes,
No one else after
No one else.
After that.
no one else.
Okay. So so that we can go in history, June 17 was the request. July 19 is when you release all the documents that are requested.
Yes.
That's fairly correct. Okay. And do you recall when did the minority bloc request the same documents? What date did the minority bloc request those documents?
I got a letter, David, it was addressed to David Atelick. We received the letter December 10, 2019.
December 10. And when did you and your staff were able to release? I know that it's a lot of documents, and I understand that you have requested extension, and so that you can comply with the request. When did you start giving the minority bloc the documents requested?
We gave in partials, is maybe what I'm gonna say. It was not complete. So we were giving whatever we found or whatever we,
So with the partial submission for the request of the minority bloc, I assume that your staff are still working for the pending documents requested. Is that correct?
all the documents I've already submitted with the subpoena.
Okay. So all the documents that you submitted through with this body through the subpoena is what the pending documents the minority blocks have yet to receive. So it's
Yes.
with the body right now,
Yes,
to your knowledge.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield for now.
Thank you, Mr. Flor. Anyone for the first round? No? Second round? Recognize the vice.
Thank you, Chairman. Madam Torres, thank you very much for your participation. You did mention that the original documents that has personal information were redacted, according to your statement on number 11. And then you were also being advised by the legal counsel, Mr. Burnbridge, to redact information further on citizens' requests for under the Open Government Act. Were you, Madam Torres, were you directly been advised as to what specific personal information can be redacted? And then on line with redaction, because Mr. Burnbridge had mentioned that these are protected under the redaction law. Are you familiar with the redaction law, or has the legal counsel advised you in regards to specific rules on the redaction law? You can answer it yes or no. Thank you.
No.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Torres. Chairman, are you?
Thank you, Vice.
For another round, thank you.
Okay. Is there any other comments, questions to the director? Rep. Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Torres, in addition to the master reports from the general ledger that we have requested, would you be able to provide also a statement of that's actually required in 1 CMC 9918? Minority Leader read this section of the Open Government Act to you. Agency responses that refuse in whole or in part the inspection of any public record, they have to provide a statement that explains the specific exemption in the law authorizing the withholding of the record and a brief explanation of how the exemption applies to the record that was withheld. Now we are well aware of the types of information that you redacted, but there's also a statement that was provided by Finance that indicates that some records are still missing, correct, because they were destroyed or eaten by bugs or whatnot, but you would be able to prepare a statement that indicates which records actually have not been turned over, right, because you know what's missing, what was destroyed.
It was only 2 PVs that were destroyed.
Only 2?
Yeah, I gave you guys I clipped it. It was utilities. I even provided a PV or the voucher off the system, and it's showing it's a CUC payment for a government agency, but I can get that to you. You know.
Okay.
As far as statement, maybe you should ask the Secretary of Finance.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that is actually still required under the law. That has not been complied with. But the last we met with you back in January, you mentioned that there were also some missing travel records of the governor that you were still.
It was only one travel record that was missing, and it was a trip that was canceled.
Okay, so all of the travel records.
I provided that to you too.
Yes.
On the subpoena.
And yeah, so I guess that master report would be helpful because we don't know what that report looks like and what was generated, right? Okay. So that would be very helpful. But as far as you know, based on your efforts and your staff's efforts, all of the other records, besides those 2 that were destroyed, have been identified and turned over.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Representative Sablan. Anyone else? No one? Okay. Ms. Berta Torres, thank you for making your time, giving your time to us. Your excuse. Thank you.
Thank you.
And short recess. John, short recess. Are we good? Can we go back? They were the first. John, we're good to go back. Okay. Thank you, John. Sarge, can you escort Mr. Burnbridge? But it's going to be presented as is.
Please stand. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Gilbert Burnbridge,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear,
under the penalty of perjury,
under the penalty of perjury,
that the testimony I shall give in the matter at hand
that the testimony I shall give in the manner at hand
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you, Sarge. And for the record, Mr. Burnbridge, please state your name, position, and further.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of this committee. My name is Gilbert Joseph Burnbridge. I am legal counsel to the Governor, Office of the Governor.
Thank you, Mr. Burnbridge. With that, I believe you made some legal advice to Ms. Torres, and I believe the members had questions. The investigation had to stop last Monday because of your advice. So with that, I'll open up the questions to the members. Rep. Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Mr. Burnbridge. How long have you held this position with the governor's office?
I've been legal counsel to the Governor since August of 2017.
And would you be more specific about who exactly your clients are?
My client is the Governor and at least his staff. Could be like the office of the Governor. It's not highly defined. Usually I treat it as within the building.
Okay. Is the Department of Finance your client?
No, the Department of Finance is not my client.
So Miss Margaret Bertha Torres is also then not your client?
Yes. She is not my client.
Do you typically advise agencies or government employees outside of the governor's office who are not your clients?
Not typically. Sometimes I will give advice to other executive branch officials. It usually is what I would call like friendly advice as a lawyer. The Office of the Attorney General would be their official counsel, and and I do often instruct or tell them, I am not your counsel, but only the Attorney General's office is your counsel, and their advice would basically override mine and would be binding on you.
So with respect to these records of the governor's expenditures that members of the legislature had requested, did you initiate contact with finance regarding the release of these records?
Assuming you're referring to that June communication, yes, I am the one that initiated calling Ms. Torres.
No, actually the June 2019 communication was the citizen request. The members of the legislature requested requested records from finance in December 2019. So in December 2019, did you contact finance?
I have no recollection of calling. I don't believe I did.
So when did you first contact finance regarding the release of the governor's records of expenses?
Are you referring to the June episode?
Is that when you contacted finance?
All right. I don't have a specific recollection of the date. I'm actually more looking off of Ms. Torres' statement here. It could be June, but I do have a...
June 2019.
Yeah, it could very well be the case. I definitely have a memory of calling her. about it, yes.
So you called Ms. Torres directly.
Yes, I did.
And what prompted you to contact Ms. Torres?
Somebody in the office of the governor alerted me that his financial information was out there, was released. Could well be candid. That sounds familiar. So that's what prompted me to communicate with her, with Director Torres, that, you know, in my capacity as attorney for the governor and the office of the governor, to protect their interests, and also just in a generalized wish to have like executive branch officials follow the law. That's why I contacted her.
And who alerted you that these records have been released?
I have no recollection of who that was anymore.
So you spoke to Ms. Torres. Did you speak to anybody else at Finance?
I don't believe so.
And in your conversation with Ms. Torres, did you also advise her to reach out to Finance's legal counsel at the Attorney General's office?
I have no recollection that I did that.
So what specifically did you advise Ms. Torres to do?
I advised her that under the Constitution and OGA, that personal identifiers regarding financial information like bank account numbers, and also personal identifiers like social security numbers. I may have also mentioned tax identification numbers, basically information that is often used by people to commit identity theft and fraud, that those should be redacted.
Do you have any written record of the types of information that you advised her to redact?
I do not believe I have any written record. I think it was just a phone call.
And did you specifically advise her to redact even the last 4 digits of any credit card numbers that might appear in the governor's receipts?
I think I just told her to just redact the information. I don't believe I told her to leave the last 4 digits.
But you did say all credit card information should be redacted?
I just said like the credit card number.
Did you advise her to redact and physically alter the original records that Finance had in their custody?
No, I did not.
And did you speak to any legal counsel for Finance prior to reaching out to Ms. Torres?
I don't believe I did.
Why not?
Just didn't feel the need. I guess it was just, it seemed kind of obvious to me.
What do you mean?
That it's like when I was over at the Attorney General's office and when we were giving advice, there was this policy that the Attorney General's office was supposed to be like directly involved in helping agencies do help them in their OGA requests. And so I believe that's from that practice and carried over to when I became legal counsel at the Office of the Governor. Just that you redact personal identifier informations. And often we would try to, you know, follow the examples of how the federal government would do it.
Okay. So you just assumed then that the Attorney General's office would be providing some guidance to Finance in terms of how to comply with this request?
I believe that's a fair statement, okay. Yeah.
And did you provide any other guidance for Ms. Torres other than your advice that personal information should be redacted? Any other guidance about how to comply with the Open Government Act request?
I have no recollection of providing anything beyond that.
Were you aware when members of the legislature submitted an Open Government Act request for financial records of the governor in December?
I may have heard something. I did not involve myself in it with Department of Finance, or I did not call Ms. Torres about it.
Okay. So you didn't reach out at all after December? After that initial contact in June, you knew about the legislature's request in December, but there was no contact after that?
Yeah, I did not assist them or call them regarding it with that OGA request.
Okay. Mr. Burnbridge, did the governor instruct you to contact finance staff directly about the release of these records?
No, he did not.
Did he instruct you to direct finance to redact these records?
No, he did not.
And did he instruct you to direct finance to physically alter original records?
No, he did not.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Rep. Sablon. And in line with the Rep. Sablon, your advice actually caused a lot of confusion at finance, which have them to interpret certain things that they actually redacted items that's not supposed to. This is where the problem's at. Is when a council, any council for that matter, informs a civil service staff, you must redact, and if they don't understand what it is, what happens now is, your advice cause all this confusion that now all this information is pretty much gone from the face of the earth because now we don't know what's going on, unless and that's how I look at it. I'm not sure with the other members, but this kind of information with regards to even credit card, that last 4 digits, it's very hard to determine whose name is on it because normally when you print out credit card, when it's printed out, there's no name, it's just the last 4 digits, which is very difficult to identify whose card it is. And that's my concern is when any council advises especially the Department of Finance, to hide certain things that's not, personal ID, but your last 4 digits for me, it's not a personal ID, and that's what happens. And now we're hitting this road bump. I'm not sure where to go, but it's something that needs to be cleared first with the Department of Finance and their attorneys. And that I'll leave. We have a Rep. Probst then.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Council, for coming in this morning to answer our questions. We appreciate your time. Just sort of a follow-up. So when you advised them to redact the credit card information, had you seen the documents that were published by Candid News or wherever you found this out?
I have a vague recollection of looking at Candid News, the website, before I called her, but I have no specific recollection of the documents that I viewed on the website. But they did, I have one that I believe some of them did had the personal identifier information that we're discussing now. They were on the website.
But in regards to the credit card numbers, you had viewed those documents. You saw that originally there were only the last 4 numbers on these credit cards. Is that correct?
I have not viewed, well, let me take that back. I have viewed the ones on the website or on the Candid News, and I have seen a sample of 1 or 2 also that were given, but I don't actually specifically recollect looking at the credit card numbers. I was actually just, the ones I was looking at were like the redacted documents, the originals, and I saw, yes, I could see that they were redacted quite extensively.
But you're aware that it is permissible for businesses and whatnot to print the last 4 digits, even up to the last 5 digits of credit card numbers. You're aware of that, is that correct?
Yeah, that's, I believe that would be the best practice, that even in response to an OGA request, when it comes to a credit card number, you should have the last 4 digits, and that's responsible.
Thank you. And again, just to reiterate what the chairman said, I think that is the challenge that we have now, because when original documents are redacted or altered, we are left to scramble and try to find these numbers to identify who actually owns those credit cards. So it has caused a great deal of, as the chairman said, confusion, but also it's now up to the committee to try to find these credit card numbers, and I believe Congresswoman Tina Sablan found up to 17 with the last four numbers. And it's this body's, the special committee's job now to find out if the governor is the owner of these credit cards. So that is all. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Probst. Floor leader? You were none.
You must have seen somebody else, Mr. Chairman. I didn't raise a man.
Vice, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. And Mr. Burnbridge, welcome to your house. Council, you did advise Finance on documents to be redacted. That's according to the statement made by Madame Torres. And then referencing redaction law. And I did ask a question earlier to Madame Torres in regards to Finance familiarity of the redaction law. And then she answered that they're not familiar with the redaction law. And here you are advising Finance what personal information must be redacted because it's protected by the redaction law. Obviously, Madame Torres told us that they're not familiar or totally familiar with the redaction law, which you specifically stated the redaction law. So would you then and now recommend that every department that deals with confidential information should be familiar at least to a point what information can be redacted? Would you make that recommendation? Mr.
I absolutely would. I know when I was back with the Attorney General's office, that was a goal of our office. It would certainly, you want departments following the law. That's the goal. That is, I'm for it, governor's for it. And obviously it's more than just best practice. It's
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Burnbridge, you stated that you do recommend, and I highly recommend that you advise your boss to have these people trained to be familiar with the redaction law, because it's very confusing. The redacted documents of the original documents, specifically documents of credit cards, the original documents, the credit card numbers were redacted. As a legal counsel, if I needed that document, for example, I have a court case, how would you deal if a judge asks specifically a document that is redacted, and you as a legal counsel, either you're prosecuting or defending a client, and certain document that is redacted, how do you go back to cross-reference a redacted document for future uses, such as court cases?
Well, I absolutely understand the troubles that would cause. Uh, I wouldn't be able to answer right here, right now. I would have to put in some research. It's been quite a while since I've been in a courtroom. But I can certainly look into it.
And I suggest that you do, Mr. Burnbridge, please, for the sake of our people. Thank you. You, Chairman.
Thank you, Vice. Is there anyone for the second round? I believe Rep. Sablan went twice already. Rep. Flora.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Burnbridge, how many years have you been practicing law?
I graduated law school in 1999. I've been barred in Ohio in 1999. I came over to CNMI in 2003. I then took the bar here. I worked for the federal government. I was a law clerk to Judge Munson. And then I took the bar in, I believe it was 2007, and I've been practicing in the CNMI since then.
Thank you. And so you're familiar with laws that protect privacy of any citizen?
I am familiar with the Open Government Act and with the Constitutional Article 1, Section, I believe it's Section 10.
So you're going back to the topic, the discussion that most of our members are asking, that you advise Mr. Berta Torres to redact confidential, private identifications. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, I did call her and
Such as
advised her that she should do that.
such as Social Security.
Yes.
But did you specifically tell her to redact the credit card number?
I told her she should redact the credit card number.
Are you aware that the credit card, normally when you get receipts, there's only 4 digits in the last, and that's just the normal. Even this committee, we don't even know how we're gonna get the identity of that last 4 digit.
Yes.
Who really owns that card? So did you at that time see the need that we should redact the credit card number?
I did not specifically, to my recollection, I did not specifically tell her to leave the last 4 digits.
Okay. Thank you for that response. Are you, Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Flor. Anyone for the second round before I recognize Rep. Sablan? None? Rep. Sablan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and not to beat a dead horse, Mr. Burnbridge, but you would agree that the last 4 digits of a credit card number are not personal identifying information, correct?
Well, I think there still is like a personal identification aspect to it, but I think in terms of a redacting, like a proper redaction can leave the last 4 digits of a credit card number.
Okay, and so for an Open Government Act release of records, then it would have been appropriate, and I think you used the word responsible, to allow the release of the last 4 digits of those credit card numbers that appeared on receipts that were used for government reimbursement.
I believe in a response to an Open Government Act request involving credit card numbers, you could redact all numbers except the last 4, and that would be appropriate.
Okay, and would you even say that those last 4 digits should not have been redacted?
Looking back, well, yes, I believe they should not have been redacted.
Okay, thank you. Does the governor's office maintain a list of the credit card numbers and the names on the cards that have been used for the governor's reimbursements?
I have no knowledge of that.
Who would have knowledge of that?
I believe staff usually, that's, I'm being a little speculative, but perhaps the staff.
And I'm sorry, who among the staff would have knowledge of that?
Not off the top of my head, I do not know.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that someone had alerted you to their personal information being published on Candid News. You didn't remember who, but do you remember whether that person was concerned because their own personal information had been released?
No, I think it was just because they saw that the governor, there was credit card numbers and it involved the governor.
Okay, so the concern was about the governor's personal information being
Well,
released.
there was the governor's personal information that was being broadcast.
Okay. Is it common practice for the governor to submit reimbursements for items that other people have paid for or charged to their own credit cards?
I have no knowledge of that.
The statement submitted by Ms. Bertha Torres, if I could draw your attention, do you have that in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Number 7. She states that she instructed finance employees to redact all personal information from all responsive documents because they were confidential, as advised by Mr. Burnbridge. Would you please just state for the record your position on that statement?
I don't believe I would just use those exact terms. I believe I used kind of what was said earlier. I said personal identifiers such as social security numbers, bank account numbers, and I believe I also included like tax ID numbers, information like that.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Burnbridge. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Sablan. Is there anyone else? If not, okay. Okay. Chair recognizes the vice.
Thank you. Mr. Burnbridge, earlier you stated that you were not asked by anyone to advise finance to redact personal information. Is that correct?
I believe I said I wasn't asked by the governor. I was alerted to it, perhaps, but I wasn't asked to go directly call them and take care, let them know. I think maybe there was like an implied assumption I would contact finance, but that's kind of speculation on my part.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Burnbridge, you did state it that you overheard about an Open Government Act request from in the offices of the executive offices. You overheard. That's what prompted you to advise Madam Torres for future requests that all personal information must be redacted. You stated that. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct.
So correct me then.
Okay. What prompted me to call was after that information was published in Candid, which I don't personally remember anymore when that was, but looking at her statement, she said that was in June of 2019, and I believe that sounds like it could be correct. I know it was after that. The statement I made about hearing I don't know if I was sorry, rumor would be the best term, but that there were further OGA requests, I believe that was an answer to whether I'd heard about these December OGA requests. So, and I never contacted her about those.
Thank you, Mr. Burnbridge. And one last question, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. Mr. Burnbridge, I have a letter here. Did you have a copy of this letter to you from the governor?
Yes, I do.
The subject is assertion of testimonial privileges. When did you receive this letter?
Uh, it's dated August 12th.
So you received it
Yes,
yesterday?
yes.
What time?
Sometime in the morning.
Okay, thank you. And one, one last question in regards to this letter. So the governor is ordering you not to be specific on our questions because he's stating that he's not waiving his attorney-client privileges. And you understand what he's asking? What is he asking of you?
This is regards, all right. For purposes of this hearing, this letter is just meant to inform both me and you, and for the record, that he's not waiving attorney-client privilege and the appropriate executive privileges. This is so that I could sit here and if a question maybe implicated one of the privileges, and I would say something, for example, like I declined the answer on the basis of attorney-client privilege. So based on the questions I have received today, I did not feel that I needed to assert any sort of privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Burnbridge. So this letter is very, very important to us and to the sake of our people, because you are the counsel of our governor. And let me ask Mr. Burnbridge, how long have you been a lawyer?
I've been an attorney since 1999.
And you were the Attorney General at one time, is that correct?
Yes, I was the Attorney General in 2014 through January of 2015.
Is this a practice in our government that you would advise any department or any division, such as what you have asserted today, that you heard that there are Open Government Act requests, and then you don't represent finance, but you did advise finance to redact those information? Is that the common practice these days?
Let's say the Office of the Governor has an interest in seeing that departments comply with the law. So it's not something that happens all the time. Like I said earlier, the Office of the Attorney General is their designated counsel, and they're the ones they should consult with. But every once in a while, I'll go out and especially if the Office of the Attorney General is not providing the service sometimes they should be, I will just give it what I would call friendly advice.
Thank you, Mr. Burnbridge. Mr. Burnbridge, you did earlier stated that you would recommend that personnel at finance or any other departments or entities, government entities for that matter, that it would be nice and it would be helpful if these folks that deals with personal information, they must be familiarized with the redaction law. And even us here, our colleagues here, we're not too familiar with the redaction law, but we know as we speak today or previous meetings, all we hear is redaction, redaction after redaction. I would appreciate if you had, again, advise your boss that individuals in government entities dealing with personal information, that they must be familiarized with that particular law so that we don't have to go through this process again about that specific word redaction. Are you, Chairman?
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair. I'll take the last one for Rep Props, and we'll close it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And again, thank you, Council, for being here. Just have a couple of questions, and I don't know if it's a question or maybe more of a statement, but let me try to phrase it into a question. So, based on your experience as an attorney, as a legal counsel, if the credit card numbers that we have been trying to identify are not the governor's personal cards, personal credit cards, then do you feel you still have standing to protect the identity of this person who is not the governor, or would you not have the authority?
I don't feel it necessarily is like an issue of standing. I kind of feel like just specifically with this case, it was alarming that personal information was out there. Even even if it wasn't the governor, we shouldn't be putting out information like that out there.
And in normal circumstances, we could understand that. But again, in all cases that we see, even when we get from restaurants, the last 4 digits were really what was critical for us to identify. And now we are, like I said, we are caught in a crossroads right now in how to get the rest of this information. I think what is important to learn from this is that I don't want to put this, but that the office of the governor's interests may be different than finance's interest. And that is where we come into these issues and why it is critical that you are the counsel of the governor. And I know that you were saying that you were giving friendly advice, but at the same time, this type of advice should really come from the council, the Attorney General Council that is assigned to finance. And perhaps if that had happened, we wouldn't be facing these issues right now, I would think. So I just wanted to state that for the record and moving forward, Council. That is all. Thank you again.
Thank you, Representative Sablan. And with that, thank you. Probe, sorry, I was looking that way.
May I just ask a point of clarification for our legal counsel to address, just for the record?
Legal counsel.
Yeah, if our legal counsel could address, for the record, whether the model rules that apply to attorneys say anything at all about giving friendly advice, legal advice, to people who are not your clients.
I don't have the rules in front of me, but just generally speaking, you don't represent a party, you don't give legal advice to that party. If you know a party is represented, you definitely don't give legal advice to that represented party.
Okay, and then really quickly, again, as a point of information for the record, from Mr. Burnbridge, do you acknowledge that finance's interests may be different from the governor's interests?
I would acknowledge there may be points where, yes, they might be different. But can I address what he just said?
Sure.
What I was doing is not really that different. In fact, I would say it's the same what you would do in private practice. If you feel somebody is infringing on your client, you write a letter to that person saying why you think under the law they shouldn't do what they're doing. You're advocating for your client. That was what that situation was about.
Understood, but friendly advice is not referenced at all in the model rules that apply to attorneys. You would agree with our counsel statement?
I would agree that the word friendly advice is not in the model rules.
And you also agree that, such as in this case, the interests of finance and the governor's office may not be the same?
I would agree that sometimes they are not the same, yes.
Thank you. I yield. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Saban. And thank you, Mr. Burnbridge, for appearing and your excuse. Thank you. And members, before we adjourn, is 1 p.m. okay with everybody with regards to the, I would recess to 1 p.m. with the Secretary of Finance. Monday, Monday, Monday.
Are we adjourning or are we recessing until?
We can do recess or we can adjourn.
Let's recess.
I would suggest we recess, Mr. Chairman, till 1 p.m. on Monday.
Yes, I will confirm that today. I believe we have some presentation in the morning. I would prefer in the morning, but I was informed by my staff that 1 p.m. would be okay. So I'll inform the Secretary of Finance to be here Monday at 1 p.m.
Okay. Thank you.
With that, thank you, members. And this committee stands in recess to Monday, 1 p.m. Thank you.